We'll call the April 29th, 2019 public hearing of Peters Township Council to order. Mr. Lauer, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Merrill. Present. Mr. Stiles. Present. Mr. Arcuri. Here. Mr. Kozer.
Present.
Mr. Berkowitz.
Here.
Mr. Ball.
Present.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming this evening. The purpose of the public hearing this evening is to present information concerning the proposed Rolling Hills Park Community Outdoor Aquatic Center and to accept comments from the public regarding the Aquatic Center. This evening's public hearing was advertised in the Observer Reporter on April 15th and April 22nd. The notice of the hearing was placed on the Township's website, various Township message boards and banners, an article published in the Almanac and the Observer Reporter. Notices were also provided using social media, including email blasts from the Township, the Parks and Recreation Department, the library, and the school district. Mr. Lauer?
I would like to start by entering a couple documents into the record. The first is an email received by the Township from Bruno, Sarah, and Lusa Casil on April 10th in support of the project. The second is an email received by, from Joe and Mary Chapin, dated April 12th in opposition to the project. And finally, on April 29th, there was an email received from Bob Burkhart, who was in opposition to the project. With that, let me begin. As Mr. Kozer indicated, the purpose of this gathering tonight is twofold. One, we wanted to share some background information so that we're all kind of on the same page, but more importantly, it was to solicit comments from the community as to whether or not now is the right time to be building an outdoor aquatic center in Rolling Hills Park. I have, worked here since 1984, and we have on numerous occasions since that time asked the community what they would like to see in terms of recreation facilities. The number one request every time we have done that survey is that there be a swimming pool constructed in Peters Township. One of the reasons why that never was seriously considered was that at that point in time the township did not have suitable land for the construction of a pool. So when the township, working with the school district, acquired the former Rolling Hills Country Club, one of the decisions that was made as part of the planning process is that consideration would be given to a pool. And there were a number of guiding principles that laid out the framework around which the master plan was done, but the one that is relevant for tonight is this, that the park in fact include an aquatic center. When you look at the master plan, and there were copies of this available to everybody as they came in, you will see, therefore, a space was reserved for a outdoor aquatic center. What has not been determined is when that will be built. Mr. Wallover, who is the consultant who helped with the Rolling Hills master plan, is going to talk more about the elements that are included in that pool and the kind of features that are anticipated to be in that pool. But again, the real question is not whether a pool should be incorporated into the park. The question that we're trying to get input on is now the time to do that? One of the questions that I have received from a number of people is, what will that pool cost? And when people look at it, it isn't that they're concerned about what the total cost of the pool is as much as what will it cost me as a taxpayer to be able to have this type of facility? So the one thing that is common about all recreation facilities, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a baseball field, a soccer field, a picnic area, a playground, a recreation center, or an aquatic center. Recreation facilities do not provide revenue streams that are capable of recovering capital costs. And that's true no matter what type of facility you're looking at. So we don't recover anything from the turf field and the lights that are on the field up in Peterswood Park. What is true, though, is that aquatic centers, if developed properly and managed properly, do have the ability to cover their operating costs and their ongoing maintenance. And we're going to talk a little bit about that with an example from Cranberry Township. So what is the capital cost associated with this? And again, this information is available to everyone. It's also up on the website. This tells you what the 2018 real estate tax revenues were based upon current millage of 1.622, and it tells you that every tenth of a mill generates $305,000. So the debt service that would be associated not only with the construction of the pool, but opening up the park, including bringing utilities in, bringing a roadway in, putting in a restroom, and some picnic facilities, would be covered by a 0.2 of a mil increase in taxes. Now, that is not to say that if the township goes ahead with this project that your taxes will go up 0.2 of a mil. What that is saying is if that was the only source of revenues that we would use, that's what the maximum amount of a tax increase would be. So if you take the average homeowner in Peters Township, they would see an annual increase in their taxes of $67. If it was the median, you know, if you count up halfway up all the homes, it's about $58. Now, this is a fairly simple calculation if you pull out your property tax bill, and you can do it for yourself. If you need help with that, you should feel free to give me a call, or Ryan Jaworski, and we can run you through that calculation so that you would understand exactly what that impact is to you. Now, one thing that we do know that is in the budget is that we intend to open up this piece of property so that it in fact can be used as a park, whether or not a pool is built. So we're talking about the road that connects through the park. We're talking about access down to Arrowhead Trail. In fact, we've acquired grant funding that's going to pay at least half of the cost of making that connection. So those kind of things are already anticipated. The site is being developed jointly with the school district. We have entered into an agreement with the school district to share the cost of the new Rolling Hills Drive, which is the road that passes between the school district property and our own, and that's going to go ahead regardless. Those projects on their own will require the township to borrow funds to be able to complete them. The question is, are we going to borrow additional funds that would be needed for the aquatic center? And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ted Wallover, and Ted's going to talk briefly about what this pool kind of looks like.
Okay. Good evening. The master plan and concept work that was done back in 2017 or 2017 really was the culmination of the work that both our firm and Mackin Engineers produced for the township. Are you able to read that in the back? Or should we dim the light? No.
Well, can we bring these lights down?
The side ones would be a good deal. That's much better.
Does that help? Okay. As was noted before, one of the major components that was involved with the study was to develop an outdoor aquatic facility for the township. So this really is an important part of the overall development of the park. It's kind of the linchpin, as we see it, for the future development. The intent was to come up with a facility that's going to provide the community with a variety of activities that will help from an educational standpoint, fitness standpoint, family fun. It's really geared towards those aspects. As we'll go through the design, I'll kind of share some of those with you. One of the basic tenets behind this is it becomes a meaningful community gathering place. Swimming pools, if they're done right and programmed right, which Dave will talk about later, really can become a very important part of a community's life. The major components that we've really developed for the project, obviously the support spaces, bathhouse facilities. Over the years, we've been doing this over 37 years now. The number one complaint we hear from families is the bathhouse facilities aren't really up to snuff. So the reality of it is having a facility that does create a clean, safe environment, has spaces for activities, parties, all the necessary support spaces that are supportive of the pool component. The major pools, there are 3 bodies of water that were ultimately identified. One was a beach access pool, which really, as it sounds, is designed more for toddlers, for young kids, with a zero depth entry that enables anybody to gain access into that pool. Those pools are turned over at a very aggressive filtration rate, but they really are a place for moms and kids to really interact together in an aquatic center. The middle pool that we've developed, and I'll show you in the plan, is really an adult-oriented or a teaching pool. It's a pool that can be used for exercise, lap swimming, and the debate as to whether or not it's a 4-lane or a 6-lane pool or an 8-lane pool certainly is going to be something that will be developed with the township if the project and when the project goes forward. But for the most part, we're looking at that pool as a place for education, for exercise and fitness. Drowning is still the leading cause of accidental death in children. So one of the things we really look at this pool as an important component for teaching. Kids need to learn how to swim, and this is the kind of facility that we can develop there. The third pool that we've looked at is a leisure pool. It's kind of a large multi-purpose pool, water slides, activities, different water features. Again, a place for kids and older kids, and adults too, to have fun and relax in a community setting. And the last component that we've talked about developing is an outdoor water playground area that is not a standing water playground. It can be open for more than the season. It can actually go into the shoulder seasons in April through October. It does not require lifeguards. There's no standing water, but it's an activity space for kids to have fun in that kind of environment. I know this is a little bit tough to see, but again, this is the concept design that was developed in part of the study. There were 3 or 4 major design options that were developed, and the committee and the township opted for this particular solution. It's a combination of leisure pools, lap pool, and then the beach access teaching pool with support spaces, sun screening, and all the various components that we see today in the industry that really helps promote an active recreational program. And again, the key focus here is to have enough activity, enough draw to the facility that the operating expenses are in fact covered, as Paul has discussed. We have found that in most of these facilities, if programming is done properly and the right features and the right components are involved in the design, the operating expenses and the cost of chemicals and staffing can be covered, taking that burden away from the township. This is just the diagram that shows basically the 4-lane component in the area. Everything is sized appropriately for the number of parking spaces required by township ordinance. And the final slide that I'm going to be discussing tonight is just showing the difference with the 6-lane pool. So these are the options that are open right now for discussion with the township. And with that, I'll leave it to Dave.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Dave Hutner. I am the program manager for Cranberry Township Parks and Recreation Department. And basically, I get the privilege of overseeing everything that's wet or fun for our Parks and Recreation Department. Which way? I'll learn. IT is not my thing. Whoops. You can see our water park here, and it didn't just happen overnight either. It's a process to go through. But what a worthwhile process. Aquatic safety is something I've been involved with for over 30 years now on many different levels, from being a lifeguard to training lifeguards to training instructors to training our maintenance staff, being a CPO instructor, etc. And over the years, I've developed a real respect for what a water park can bring to a community.
especially a community like what we have in Cranberry Township, what you have down here in Peters Township. As Ted was saying, the design is very important and it can lead to an excellent operation. Here you can see a lot of our activities that are going on. We've got the flume slide. It gives you a little bit of an overview of our diving well there with our areas that we can rent, our private party decks. Those can be rented. If I can get this to advance. Where am I pointing that to?
You're pointing to that computer.
Got it. And here you can see our splash pad. This is an interactive splash pad. It has a hand actuator on it that actually activates the thing, so it's very interactive with the kids when they come on board. It's a great place for your camps that may be too young to swim. It's a great place for our toddlers to come up. We can be there with our kids, interact with them, have a good time, and they're not in an area that you're going to be very worried about. And it's fun. You can see we built this is our zero entry. It leads down into a level depth 3 foot, and it is packed every single day that we're open. This is one of our biggest areas, and you can see the enjoyment that people have there. We also have some other features. This is down in the diving well. It gives I guess it's an in-action photo coming off the diving board, but it really features our climbing wall there in the background. We have 3 features down in that diving well, and they're separated by the lane lines. It's very easily managed with our lifeguarding staff. We've got a 3/4 meter diving board. We have a dump slide, and we have that climbing wall. Another action view of our spray pad with all the features that it has. You know, some days it gets so busy, we have other supporting programs, supporting features in and around the aquatic facility, including a full-service concession stand. And some days it gets so busy, we want to alleviate some of the lines off of the concession stand so that, you know, during our safety breaks and things like that, that people can get a drink, get something to eat, and then get back in the water to enjoy it. So these will get our prepackaged items, especially our ice creams and drinks. We can have those out there on deck. We can purchase right there. As you can see, our it's flying through now. You can, I'm not sure what's, did I stick the button or? I'm not sure what's going on. I didn't hit it. This is actually our party room right here. And it's rentable just like our deck rentals are. And you can rent that for a 2-hour period, have your own private party in there. We also have a party host that's going to be with you. And we have our mascot that's on deck as well. CT is he's our gator that comes out. And this is our scuba group. So not only are we supporting through the concession stand and of course our swim lessons, we have a very aggressive water safety campaign. We also have enjoyment recreational opportunities there as well. So we run scuba programs and they're usually filled up with the waiting list, and we're running 2 or 3 a summer depending on the weather. In addition to that, we also like to give back to our members because we have membership rates, non-member rates, both for residents and non-residents, as well as our drop-in rates. Sometimes our facilities get rather packed. One of the things that our members and our residents told us was we wanted some more time for us and our families. So we developed night swims that are member-only swims, so they can come in, enjoy the time with their family, and they've proven to be very popular with us.
And that finishes the presentations, Mr. Kozer, and I turn the meeting back to you.
Okay, is there any member of council who wishes to speak prior to the public speaking? Okay, seeing no one, we have a list of 28 residents who have signed up to speak this evening. Everyone will be allotted up to 5 minutes. If there's anyone else who is not signed up yet and who would like to speak, see Tom in the back there to get your name on the list. I will ask that if a speaker in front of you says what you intended to say, certainly everybody has their right to speak, but if 20 people want to say the same thing, we're all going to get a little redundant here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the first speaker, and I'm also going to call the next speaker, and we'll put the second speaker over there so that we can keep this moving a little bit faster. So our first speaker will be Jeff Crummy. Our second speaker will be Diane DeSalle. And when you speak, please identify where you reside.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Crummy. I reside at 172 Bittersweet Circle. I'm still waiting for Christmas cards from you guys. I am here tonight as a representative of the Parks and Recreation Board. I was also a member of the committee that helped shape the master plan for the park. As indicated in the letter that the Parks and Recreation Board sent to Council, the Parks and Recreation Board has discussed the issue of when to build the Aquatic Center, and we unanimously agreed that the Aquatic Center should be built in the first phases of the park. The reason for this is, as Mr. Lauer stated, every time we have surveyed this community, the number one item requested was a water facility, a swimming pool. Before we built the rec center, everybody wanted a swimming pool up there. And most of the people did, not everybody. This community has several neighboring communities, Mount Lebanon, Upper St. Clair, to name a few, that have water facilities. We believe Peters Township has a number of first-class facilities. We all use them. We all know what they are. I'm not going to go down the list for them. We believe that the thing that's lacking in this community is a community swimming pool, and the Parks and Recreation Board feel that it's time just to build the damn thing. Thank you.
Next on deck will be D. Fazio Tash.
Hello, I'm Diane DeSalle, 119 Robin Hood Lane, McMurray, and I'm sorry, but I'm not for this project. I feel that it's limited use. It will only get used 3 months out of the year. It's going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money, and if we can't find a consensus with the council, then I think that we should put it on the ballot for the people to completely decide whether or not they want this, because a lot of people haven't been here tonight and they don't want this, mostly because it's such a limited use facility. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker on...
Can I ask her a question?
Sure, good.
Diane, this project's going to cost like, I think, what is it, 10.8 million or?
It would be just short of 11 million.
Right, and that doesn't include staffing and all that kind of stuff, right?
Capital cost.
How do you feel about the other projects that are proposed in the park, like the courts and the dog park, and are you opposed because of the use, or are you opposed because of the tax increase, or?
I'm opposed because of the use. I think that a pool is just such a limited use facility and a limited use project that all the other, courts and the dog park and everything else will get used, and they'll get used year round. The pool's not going to.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right. The next speaker on deck will be Sam Cushy. Just in response to Ms. DeSalle's comment, the Home Rule Charter of Peters Township doesn't permit capital projects to be submitted to a referendum. That's why we're not putting this on a referendum. This is because it's a capital project, that determination has to be made by council. That's the reason we're not putting it on a referendum. Ms. Tash.
D. Fazio Tack. I live at 111 Woodcrest Place in the Lake Colony community. Everyone here, except for maybe one exception, was a teenager at some point. Obviously, that was a long time ago for me. But I remember wanting to spend time with my friends and having entertainment, especially in the summer. Researchers obviously have done their work. Fortnite has taken over a lot of teenagers' lives. I think from the design that I've seen for the proposed aquatic center, our teenagers in Peters Township would have a place to go where they could enjoy being with their friends in a safe environment, away from constant use of technology. You've already addressed a lot of what I was going to mention. I only have one comment. If you build it, we will come.
Next speaker on deck will be Larry Garcia.
My name is Sam Cushy. I live at 112 Hidden Valley Road. You've just heard from people that want the pool. You're going to hear from me because I don't want to pay for it in my taxes, okay? If, to start out, I'm not against a pool. If you can have the people that want a pool and they pay for it, that's fine with me. But you and I both know that's not going to happen. The pool here in this area is a losing proposition. At the very most, you're going to have maybe 60 days if you're lucky. And does anybody remember last summer? How many days do you think you would have had the pool open last summer? Now, I keep hearing the pool is on the top of the list. What list? I've never been surveyed. I talked to a lot of my friends. They don't know anything about the list for a swimming pool. Now, it seems to me that this is being driven by a vocal minority, the same ones that convinced the school board to change their mind and put a pool in the school. Now, an indoor pool is altogether different than an outdoor pool. So, what do you think that the members of that have pools, people that have pools, members of HOAs, Valley Brook, Rose Garden, you think those people want to pay more taxes to build a pool for somebody else? So, I don't understand your thinking that you can't put this to a referendum. How do the people vote for what they want if you can't put it to a referendum? So, now, most people agree that recreation is great, but I think you can go overboard too. You know, you're spending thousands and thousands, as Paul told me, on recreation, you know, and I'll bet there's very few senior citizens that have recreation at the top of their lists. You know, there's other things that's more important to them. Now, I really don't think that you're obligated to keep people entertained 24/7. Tell me if I'm going wrong. I thought government's responsibility was to for the needs of the people. In our entitlement society, it seems like you're going more to what people want than what people need. Now, I know a lot of the seniors that I've talked to, they're only concerned from you, and what we want from you is to keep our roads open, keep us safe with police and fire protection, and all this other stuff is just added on. And I don't think that's your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is Larry Garcia here? Okay, next speaker then will be Paul and Kathy Buzzard with Lucy Shupp on deck.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Buzzard, 130 Demble Drive, which is a few blocks up from here only. And I'm a retired electrical engineer, and I'm kind of confused about what I'm hearing, because in the opening, this was not a question of are we going to build a pool or not. The question was, are we going to build it now or later? However, most all these comments are we going to build it at all? Personally, and from all the friends and people that I know, they're in favor of a pool. Now, you talk about old people. My wife and I are both, 78 years old. Recreation is still a part of our life. We moved here 20 years ago, well, 18 years ago, after we retired, mostly because of the trail, the Montour Trail. We have ridden our bikes on the trail ever since until just recently. We had a little physical problems. I think the pool's a wonderful idea. And I understood that it is going to be built, just when. And I would like to see it built soon. Yes, my taxes are going to go up, but I think not only are we the people, old people who would use it, but there's many, many, like you said, teenagers and young adults who are looking for a place like that. Now, right now, my wife has had to join the Upper St. Clair pool and would rather have the pool here and pay for it here than pay Upper St. Clair money to use their pool. And I don't see why there's so many people against it. I'm against a lot of things, but I don't go around telling people I don't like this, I don't like that. It just doesn't make much sense to me. Everybody has their opinions, and I understand it will be built, and I don't see why we should hesitate. Usually, projects like this, the longer they sit around, the more the cost goes up. And it just goes up and up, and now is the time. We have all these wonderful people in this community, and I think we deserve the pool. Sure, some people won't use it. I don't use certain things either. I don't go to the movies. I hate movies. I think they're terrible. But they still build movie theaters just because I'm against them, so what? So we have people against it. But is it true that we are going to build it no matter what? Can someone answer that on the stage up there?
What was the question, sir?
Okay. The meeting started out by saying we are going to build the pool. The question is when. And all these comments don't address that. They're just addressing, do we want a pool or not? And I'm wondering, has something happened since the meeting started? Is the township still going to build the pool no matter what? Yes or no? I mean, that was what I heard.
Well,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're the chairman. You got to.
Well, you spoke first. Yeah.
I
Come
just
on,
asked
Chairman,
him
come on.
what he
Yeah.
said. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't hear what he said.
Yeah. The master plan for Rolling Hills Park does call for a pool, so yes, once Rolling Hills Park is fully built out, the pool will be built. The question is whether it's going to be built now, whether it's going to be built 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. The master plan for Peters Woods Park has been in effect for probably close to 20 years, I would guess. It's taken that many years to build out Peters Woods Park, and it may take 20 or 25 years to fully build out Rolling Hills Park. The question we're here on tonight is whether we build the pool now or whether we defer that till later, because yes, a pool will eventually be built in the park. It may not occur now, it may occur 20 years from now, but it will be built at some point.
Right. Well, all these people who are against it, I don't see what good or negative comments are if it's going to happen. And the reason to do it sooner is because of the cost. Almost every project, when you start something out, the longer it lays around, the higher the price gets. And there's all kind of stuff happens, and there's so many young people who would enjoy it now. And I don't see a reason not to build it. I've talked to many, many people, and every one of them that I know of is in favor of the pool, even no matter what it costs. It's a good draw for good people that have good recreation. We can maybe get some people to quit watching television and playing with their gizmos and actually do some exercise. And,
All right, thank
and
you,
also
sir.
be social.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Before you start, Ms. Shupp, Bob Spisak will be on deck. And if Bob's not here, then Jim Dacre will be on deck.
Okay, ready?
Please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lucy Shupp, 106 Pin Oak Court, Venetia. I believe Mr. Lauer in his opening comments stated that, and if I misunderstood you, please correct me, stated that recreational facilities like this essentially do not pay for themselves.
They don't
So-
pay for their capital.
They don't pay
costs.
for their capital. Do they pay for their operating expenses?
If swimming pools are well-run, and Cranberry is an example of that, they will pay for their operating expenses as well as their deferred maintenance.
Okay. Then one wonders why, if this is such a great idea, and if it is going to make money, why a private company wouldn't invest in it, make money, and then not use tax dollars for it. And my real concern is considering, and I realize this is not the school board, but the school board and council, or really all tax dollars, come from the people. It doesn't matter whether it's the school board or the township. Those dollars come from all of us, and of course you as well. My concern is, considering the amount of dollars that we are spending, we're going into debt for, the debt service of them, the operating expenses that will increase as a result of both projects, school and pool, potential projects, school and pool. My concern is, how are we set for the future should some other major project arise that's going to require a considerable amount of money? And then in what position will we be in to fix or whatever, amend whatever that project might be?
I've asked that question, and Mr. Lauer has assured us that our borrowing capabilities will not be hampered if we spent this money. Is that correct?
My borrowing capabilities right now are excellent. Do I want to borrow? Can I afford to borrow? Do I want to take on that additional debt? Those are the questions that I ask myself before I make a major investment, and I hope that all of you are seriously considering them. One of the statements, one of the goals mentioned in the document that's online, I believe it's under section 5, is that considerable attention would be spent to looking at middle ground, considering cost and needs. So I hope that whatever project comes up, whenever it comes up, that there is serious consideration to the middle grounds. What is it going to cost? What do we really need? What are we trying to accomplish? And does the project that's been defined and mentioned this evening accomplish that? Is it more than we need? I don't know. But I hope you all would consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Annie Shaner will be on deck.
Hi, I'm Jim Dyka, 110 Lisa Court here in McMurray. First of all, I wanted to I spent a lot of time on the phone with Ryan Jarosky last week going over details on the project, and he really did a nice job. And as a ex-city planner myself, it was fun to communicate and verify that he indeed had touched all the bases, had done, the department had done a good job doing that. Comment-wise, a lot of them have been taken care of, but I had a couple questions for Mr. Hunter, if you don't mind. How did you do, question was, what was the cost of your facility that we saw pictures of?
The initial cost, or?
Yeah, just the initial capital cost.
It was built in 1997, and I don't know the exact number for that. I can tell you what we did with the renovation that we just had in 2015.
What was the renovation
We had a
cost?
$2.6 million renovation to the facility.
Okay. So 17 years later, or whatever, 18 years,
Yeah, it was closer to 20, I mean, by the time we got done, but yes.
And how was your attendance? How did things work out cost-wise this past summer? With
This past summer?
Yeah.
We were in the black by quite a bit.
Really?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, in the
How did
last
you-
10
how-
years, we've only been in the red one time.
That's just answered my question, that it is possible. Couldn't have been with all the rain we had, it just was.
It could be, and certainly that will affect your attendance along the way. If you're managing, your costs are going to go down for your staff, so if you're not going to be open as long, you're not going to have as many people there, staff-wise. For the last 10 years, like I said, we've only been in the red the one time, and the other 9 years have more than made up for what we had.
Good. I did an informal survey of my neighborhood up on Lisa Court and down on Center Church Road. in Clubview. And basically, it's a pretty split community. It was 50-50 that, you know, it wasn't a question of if we're going to do it later. It was a question of do they want it at all. And half, I would say at least half, said no. And as an aside, I was on a school board way back when in my hometown. And we built a high school with a temporary wall in the gymnasium that was designed for a pool to go on the other side of that temporary wall. Well, I'll have you know that I think it opened in the early 60s. I was in the school board in the 80s, and the pool came up again then. The community couldn't afford it, and they tore the school down last year, and the pool has still never been put up. So the temporary wall was indeed not very temporary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Rossi will be on deck.
Good evening. My name's Annie Shaner, and I live at 123 Robin Hood Lane. I'm the culprit who asked council to have this public hearing. I attend the council meetings, and that initiated me distributing 1,500 flyers throughout the township to educate the people that this public hearing was going to take place. And once again, I was confronted with, as Jim indicated, a 50-50 split. I can't seem to get away from that 50-50 split. However, my flyer indicated that the reason for this public hearing basically was because council cannot reach a consensus as to how the damn thing should be built. So that's on the flyer, and people would ask me, what's with the consensus thing? And I told them. So once again, it was 50-50 to have an outside company come in and build it, and then us assess some sort of leasing agreement with them, and 50% thought, oh, well, the township will make some money on memberships. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but public speaking is the biggest fear that most people have. They don't want to come up to this microphone, because look, all of you didn't sign up to speak, right? Okay, so I feel I have to represent some of the people that I spoke to in the community, all right? So here's some of their comments. Seniors with grandchildren seem to want the pool. Okay, I have to state that one woman in particular wanted me to say her name, Paulette Carmenera of 136 Scott Lane. She has small grandchildren. She's over there in Quail Run. She said that she cannot take her small grandchildren over there, so that's why she wants it. Also, some key objections are it costs too much. The location came up. Venetia doesn't want to drive all the way over here. I was in a number of developments over there. They said it's too far. Kids that are grown, a lot of people said, my kids are already grown. Why didn't they do this 20 years ago? I have my own pool. What do I want another pool for? I tried to look up how many pools are in the township. Google Earth shows them, but I couldn't count them, so forgive me. I called the township. They couldn't tell me how many permits were issued for pools, so that's something we can put on the agenda for next time. Also, are there enough people interested in paying the fees? We don't know what the memberships are going to be, and I had a lot of people ask me that. So can you answer that? What's the membership cost? I couldn't answer that for people. They thought paying the taxes was good enough. They shouldn't have to pay a membership. Also, they highly objected to it being maintained and employed by public dollars, okay? And they indicated also that a lot of them do go to Upper St. Clair, but when their kids turned 6 years old, it was of no interest anymore, okay? So, also, a lot of them said, well, hey, if we don't do it now, it's going to cost more later. That's already been said. Also, demographics. That kept getting thrown in my face. Look, we're an aging community. I said, wait a minute, there's some young people moving here. But they were saying enrollment in the school's down. I don't know. I'm neutral. Look, I am neutral. You want a pool? Have a pool. You don't want a pool? Don't want a pool. I don't care. I just want the democracy to prevail. A lot of people want it up as a vote. If you can't put it on a ballot, could you do a vote online or something? I don't know, because you're at a 50-50 here. And I think that might be it, or that's all I have to cover, really. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaner. Mr. Lewis, since you've been on council for such a long time, you want to offer a response to the question that's been raised repeatedly as to why we didn't do this 20 years ago?
I'm not even sure if it goes back another decade after 20 years, but yes, I've been on council a lot. I've been on council probably more than a lot of you would like me to have been on, but there really haven't been people that have exercised that interest in coming out. I was here when we listened to the debates over purchasing the railroad property, which is now probably one of the prime aspects that people refer to as Peters Township with its trail. It's an asset. I was here when I voted in favor of a pool being built at the time the rec center was included. But that decision, again, was swayed by people not willing to pay. They said, we'd like to have a pool, we'd like to have a rec center, we don't want to pay for it. We're sort of at that same sentiment again today. But that's why it wasn't built 20 years ago. My kids are grown. We belong at Rose Garden. I've been a president of that association for probably 15 years. I am not currently. This community has had a waiting list to get into Rose Garden that takes a number of years. I'm very much in favor of the community building another facility to compete with it. While I was president at Rose Garden, I also belonged at Rolling Hills, because it was the warm pool versus Rolling Hills, which didn't have a heater at that point in time. Now, there's been a generation of kids that have grown up without a community pool, and it's for the same short-sightedness that I'm hearing a lot of you talk about now. It is not going to get less expensive. It is not a facility that does not add value to your community. We all take, no, I shouldn't say that. I think we probably all desire to take a week or two for a vacation, and we go spend thousands of dollars to do it. Here, for the other 8 weeks of your summer, you've got an option to have a vacation in your own community for about $80 a year. Why should we even question the logic of going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. On deck will be Chuck Stieber.
Good evening. My name is Adam Rossi. I'm at 128 McClintock Drive, the backwoods of our property, actually at Buttes, Rolling Hills Park. I have 2 young sons that we've been taking them to pools for the last several years, and they love it. I was actually at the St. Clair Rec Center for a birthday party yesterday, and just seeing how many happy kids there were swimming and birthday partying. It was just, you could feel the energy in the air, just so many happy kids having a great time. So I'm definitely in favor of the pool. Some of the comments and ideas I had in mind was, it seems a lot of the design has already been proposed. I thought, just being that Rolling Hills looks like it's going to be one of the premier parks in the area, to just try to go above and beyond with everything they could offer. Some things to consider would maybe be a wave pool for a little more action and excitement, and a little bit more draw, a little bit more fun for the kids. Making sure that diving boards are there, and letting people be able to use diving boards at the pool. The other idea was a flow rider, which is a standing surf wave. You've seen them on a lot of cruise ships. Some stores even have them, and there's some destination parks that just have these flow riders. That could be a huge draw, as well as a financial asset that you could be charging people whenever that thing's turned on. There's people paying money to be riding it. Forward thinking too, I have a background in solar energy. Just considering solar for the park as well and for the pool. On both sides of a PV array that could power all the electric for the entire park and would have a much quicker payback than the park itself, as well as considering solar thermal for heating the pool. That could keep as you mentioned, not have a cold pool. You won't have to burn anything to keep the pool warm. You could just use the sun. And that could also extend the swimming season a couple months. I noted it concerned the season wouldn't be long enough. Using solar thermal to heat the pool could extend that heating season about a month in either direction. Some of the other things too, make sure that you consider laying conduits ahead of time for these options, whether it be electric vehicle charging, solar. Even if that's something you don't do now, consider those things as the design and everything's made so they can be added in the future without having to dig up anything, trench anything up before the parking lots are put in. Township pricing for members, I think, is very important. That was something that was talked about yesterday at the St. Clair Rec Center. A lot of people weren't happy that a lot of people from outside the township come, so maybe considering that pricing structure, that township rates are much lower, and out-of-township people come and use the pool pay a much higher rate. Consider bike racks big time. As everyone mentioned, that trail is going to be a huge thing, having a pool access by bike on the trail. I would think that in the near future and on sunny days, there'll be more bikes in the parking lot than cars accessing it, so definitely consider having lots of bike racks. And there's also about 30 acres of adjoining woods to the park for sale. I would think that the township could maybe consider adding that to the parcel of the park and for the pool and everything. I think would be really good for the community and just keeping the trail green and tree covered and great for generations to come. Thanks.
Maureen Jones will be on deck.
My name is Chuck Stieber. I live at 210 Trinity Drive here in the Giant Oak section. I don't think we need a complex like this in the township. I need my grass cut, so maybe you'll consider taking care of me in that regard. I don't think we need to compete with Upper St. Clair on everything they do. We're talking about a facility that, for all practical purpose, is only going to be usable 3 months out of the year. And one commenter made the statement about how this can pull the teenagers away from the technology. What are we going to do the other 9 months out of the year? A lot of the facilities that was mentioned here, such as hiking trails, dog parks, what have you, are low maintenance items. You build them and you cut the grass, patch the pavement. This is going to be an ongoing expense: insurance, staffing, the cost of operation, the benefits that go with the staff. A gentleman replied that within 20 years they had to spend $2 million for renovation, so there has to be some money put aside for a contingency for replacement. I think it's a potential white elephant. I think it's a very opulent expenditure, and it's particularly distasteful when I find out that the Oxford Athletic Club was willing to come in here, build a much better complex, and only cost the township a fraction of what we're now looking at. I'd really like to find out what was wrong with having a private entity do this for us. Thank you very much.
Stephen Morial will be on deck.
Maureen Jones at 849 East McMurray. The previous speaker had taken a lot of my points, but I'll just cover a couple that have not been mentioned. Definitely, one of my concerns is it's been stated that at least 60% of the households in the township do not have children or school-age children. So my question is, who's going to be using these facilities that we're going to have for a very limited period of time? The other thing that I'm very concerned is you stated that it's only $70 a year in tax increase. Well, that's for now, and then as we've heard from other speakers that our costs could go up. You have to set aside contingencies for repairs and renovations and so forth. And if the operating costs are not covered, then again, who's going to pay for all this? So we have an increase for the township taxes to cover for this. We're still facing 4 years of school taxes increases to pay for a new high school. And there are several people, residents of this community, that have been here for many, many years and are living on limited incomes. And all these increases just keep eating up their limited income. So the one last thing I do want to add is this. I know you keep saying it's a $10.8 million project. What project have you ever had that has come in at the estimated amount? They always far exceed them.
Thank you. Brandon Otis will be on deck.
Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Morrell, and I live at 350 Scott Lane, Venetia, PA. That's Quail Run. We do have a pool there. I hardly ever use it. I've been a resident of Peters Township. Well, I mean, I graduated from the high school, been here my whole life. Both my parents still live here. My concern is there's a bit of short-sightedness in our master plan. I don't see where you're doing anything where seniors can go and get off their ankles and alleviate their joint pains and walk around in a pool year-round. Maybe this pool has leisure activities. I mean, the first mission of our Parks and Recreation on the website is to provide opportunities for relaxation, learning, and socialization to promote personal growth and well-being. And so well-being should be a very important part. And this is an outdoor park. I mean, I can certainly afford to give you plenty of money to pay for it. I'm sure there's a lot of doctors that would benefit from kids falling down and spraining ankles who would love to give you money. I certainly financially benefit when I keep getting fatter and sicker. So I have nothing in opposition to doing it. I would love a free market option so the taxes don't go up. I certainly could move to Upper St. Clair and enjoy their rec center. I give them money every year to go use that as I like. And I know that you guys have had feedback over and over again, because I've been one of the people saying, why don't you make a better rec center that actually has a pool in it? All I use it for is to vote. And half the time you stand outside and freeze to death in a line to vote early in the morning. So this is going to be open for part of the year. I don't know how early in the morning. I probably will never use it. Maybe if my nieces come in town, I'll take them there one time, like I did to the rec center at Upper St. Clair. We have wave pools. We have all kinds of other community things. There's a lot of reason to have criticism. And the Upper St. Clair Rec Center, their whole place was built for $28 million. Why do we have a giant field that's costing $2 million to build? So I don't know what all went into the master plan. I know a lot of people worked hard to care, but I feel like it's short-sighted to not have a place that people can use year-round and get off of their joints and use a pool indoors. Maybe the high school will have an option for us, but I don't know what its hours would be. So, I know that it's a revenue maker. It'll look great. Maybe it'll raise our taxes. Maybe it'll raise our home values. But when you look at the census from 10 years ago, you've got over 20% of the people here in our community were already seniors. Well, 10 years have gone by. You have a few more seniors that you're not taking care of with this, but you're taxing them and they're on a fixed income. Thank you.
Brandon Otis. Okay, let's move on to Rudolph and Joanne Koish. Hope I pronounced your last name correctly, sir.
Close, Choich, like church in Brooklyn.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I'm Rudy Choich. I'm one of the seniors that we all talk about. My wife and I, we live at 315 Village Green Drive in McMurray. And I'm here to speak positively in support of building the pool now, sooner than later. Throughout our career, we've moved and lived in many, many communities around the country. And a community pool was always a very vibrant element of the communities within which we have lived, and we see that as a very viable option. I think the plans are great. If I understand what I'm hearing, whether we build this pool now or later, we will have we will sustain a tax increase because the rest of the park will be built. Am I correct in that assumption?
Well, that all depends on what we're going to build, but yeah, I would agree with you that if we decide not to build the pool and we end up building the racket courts or the pavilions or the ski lodge first, then there'll be a tax increase for that too.
You know, so in a sense, it becomes somewhat of a moot issue. It's whether I'm going to pay $50 or $70. Is that what I'm hearing? So we are going to sustain a tax increase just simply by building the park, whether or not the pool is built initially or not. And I think we should not lose sight of that. The other thing is perhaps we ought to consider delaying some of the other things. We have already heard that the pool might in fact be certainly revenue neutral or cost neutral, I should say, and perhaps generating a little revenue as well. Perhaps do we need a 2-story lodge, for example? Do we need the bike trails? How often are the mountain bike trails going to be used or some of the other bike trails? So I think if you're looking at all the options that are on this plan, perhaps we ought to think about deferring some of the other activities in lieu of building the pool, because I think the pool offers a very valuable, viable option for our community and families with young children, as well as seniors who are young at heart that could use the pool, if you will. So we support the pool.
Thank you, sir. Next is Jennifer Grossman with Ron Books on deck. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were both going to speak. My apologies.
I guess he said everything I was going to say.
I apologize, ma'am. Never should I presume that the husband spoke for the wife, so please proceed. I know I certainly don't in my house, so.
You owe me big time.
I'll remember that.
My name is Joanne Schoich. I live at 315 Village Green Drive. I'm one of those grandmothers who has to support Upper St. Clair and the surrounding communities. I would not like to. I would like to support my own community. I think this is a long time in coming, and I would vote strongly for having an aquatic center. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify the record, I heard some gasps out in the crowd when I said ski lodge. I don't want the newspaper to indicate tomorrow that Peters Township is building a ski lodge. That is supposed to be a nature center, which would be at the base of what would be the snow tubing facility, which would be used for warming. So rest assured, no ski lodge. I don't want anyone calling me tonight, okay? Okay. Mr. Books, please.
Good evening. I'm Ron
And
Books.
Kathy Morris will be on deck.
I live at 855 Bebot Road in Venetia. I'd like to raise some question about the efficacy under which the pool decision was made. If I'm not mistaken, that decision was made when we came up with a recreation plan approximately 5 years ago. Is that correct?
Process that took a number of years. I don't know if you can tell me.
3 years ago?
3 years.
Time flies. Well, anyway, in looking at this situation, I believe the average age of the people who live in Peters Township right now is somewhere between 45 and 50 years of age. We don't have a high proportion of youth in our community for one very simple reason. Young families cannot afford to move to Peters Township. The homes that we plan to build in the future constitute what are called garden homes. Garden homes, for lack of a better name, are homes designed for couples, typically senior couples, which means we're not going to see a growth in the youth community. We're not going to see more children moving into Peters Township, by and large. Somebody can dispute that, I'd be glad to listen. So that leaves us with a situation. How do we go about facilitating a pool if the number of people that need to use or want to use that pool will probably decline? The older we get, the less likely we are, unless Dr. Morrell can set up a station there at the pool, the fewer of us are going to be out there wading in the water. The other thing that I'd just like to mention is that we have an opportunity here to test the water. Hate to use that phrase, but if we were to offer the members of Peters Township's community a discounted rate at either Mineral Beach or Upper St. Clair's pool, it'd give us an opportunity to gauge the interest in just what kind of population we'll be serving with this pool. So if we have people that want to really use a pool or facilitate the pool, they'll support the idea of buying a season ticket for either the Upper St. Clair or the Mineral Beach pools. That'll give us a gauge. But absent that, the idea of what does a pool serve, in doing a little research on the net, I discovered that only about 4% of a community's population end up using a pool. In our case, a community of 25,000, we're talking about 1,000 people that would use that pool over the course of the summer. Now, of that 1,000 people, typically only about, 50% of the community, that 1,000 people, will go to the pool twice during the summer. The 25% will go 4 times, and only about 10% of the community that uses the pool will use it 7 times in 1 year. So even though you might have a few people signing up to use the pool, they won't be using it frequently. And the one gentleman that brought up last year's weather was perfectly on target. Last year we wouldn't have had anybody at the pool. But that's another thing. Again, this year we may have global warming, who knows? Under the circumstances, I think we have a lot to examine. And I'd like to see a little more research. I'd like to see a little testing. I'd like to see how many people would really be interested in using the pool by virtue of the township offering a discounted rate to anybody interested in using the Upper St. Clair or Mineral Beach pools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkes. Joan Kuntz will be on deck.
Hi, I'm Jen Grossman. I live at 169 Pleasant View Drive. I'm also running for school board in Peters Township. I agree with a lot of what's been said supporting the community pool. As a mom of 3 young boys, I can tell you that there are not many good pool options to cool off at during the summertime. As I talk to members of the community, I'm hearing a consistent theme from people. Families want a pool option Peters, and we want it now. The school district's success is largely built on its partner relationship with the community. A community pool would add to the school spirit we've all grown to love. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Kathy Morris. I live at 150 Marion Drive. I'm a horrible speaker, so this whole thing makes me sad, okay? This is not a pool. This is Wally World. I've been in Peters Township my entire life. I was here when Peters Township, the current Peters Township High School was Sprouse Farm. I lived right behind the current $1 million homes that was the Anthony Farms, and I ran around in the cow dung with my brother and sister, and we went down and got eggs. This is a beautiful community. I did want a pool at the rec center up there many years ago, but I don't understand the purpose of this giant complex in our beautiful community. We chasing away our wildlife. People are mad because the deer eat their plants, but they have no place to go. You know, I love the country, I love the animals, and you know what? My kids, they are grown, but they played in sprinklers, and we shot squirt guns, and we still had fun and family time without having to pay taxes on the senior citizens. I mean, we are now on fixed incomes. I don't want to pay any more money. I want to live the rest of our lives out with what we have and enjoy what we have. I tried to get into Rose Garden, and you're right. The waiting line was 1 million years long, unless you bought a new house and they had a bond. Then if you got the bond with the house, you got into them. That wasn't a fair situation either. But I decided, we don't need pools now. I don't care about this pool. I don't want this pool. It's not a pool. It's an amusement park. I don't want it. Done. Thank you.
Peter Graziotto will be on deck.
Hi, I'm Joan Kuntz. I live on Clubview Drive. I moved to Peters Township in 1986. I've wanted a community pool ever since I moved here. My husband and I raised 3 children here. They all graduated from the high school. But they were little when we moved here, and we came from a township that had a community pool. And they all learned to swim there. They had something wholesome to do in the summer. They met up with their friends. It was a place that everybody gathered. When we moved here, there was nothing like that. There was no place to gather with friends. I did join Rose Garden Pool for a while, but I found it expensive and exclusionary. We had a wait list. We had to buy a bond. We had to pay major outlays for repairs, and we had a huge fee annually. So a community pool would eliminate that. And I think that the kids, especially teenagers, would be able to go somewhere, meet up with friends, have special events. There'd be something for kids to do. And I think that's important when young people get to that age. And I think they will gather there. I think it will make Peters a more desirable community. My kids don't live here anymore. I don't have grandkids that live here. They're all out of state. But I want it for the young people that are still here, the young people that are going to come. I think my family missed out, and I don't want anybody else to, and I am willing to pay for it. Thank you.
Garrett Murray will be on deck.
My name is Pete Graziotto. I live at 137 Hidden Valley Road. Question on the master plan. Somebody can help explain that to me. You said we have the master plan and we are going to build a swimming pool regardless of what. Can that master plan be changed?
Can the master plan be changed? It's not going to be changed. The master plan was the result of, or the end result of 18 months of public input and several workshops, and a lot of work went into the master plan, so that's not going to be changed.
So what I'm asking though is, in the master plan, there's no possibility of taking the swimming pool out of the master plan?
Correct. Now, that's not saying it's going to get built. It's in the master plan, like I said earlier. It may not get built for 30 years. I mean, you know, I may be me and Mr. Steigel may be the only members of this council who live to see it. That's not anything derogatory to anyone else sitting here. I'm just saying if it doesn't happen for 35 or 40 years, that may be the case. But ultimately, it is going to happen at some point.
Okay, so that issue is resolved no matter what. It's going to be done at some point in time. So the question is, in my mind, are we going to do it now?
Correct.
So a couple of questions, if I can, to Cranberry.
Yes, sir.
What's the demographics of Cranberry as compared to Peters Township?
I'm not very familiar with the demographics of Peter Township, but I believe it to be very similar, especially when Cranberry 10, 15 years ago.
Does anybody done the research to find out whether that is in fact true? The other question I would have is the other swimming pools in the area, if we talk to Canonsburg, and I know they run in the red, help me with the other swimming pools that are in the area. Dormont, they're in the red. They had to shut the pool down until somebody came up with several $100,000 to repair it. Again, I really am struggling with the fact that other pools can't survive, can't pay their bills, yet we're willing to build, is it Wally World? So again, as a business person, you know, I say to myself, you know, would I borrow $11.5 million, sink it into something that's going to cost me money every year, and only use it for 3 months? In my mind, if we're going to spend $10.8 million, we ought to do it towards helping the police department, the fire department, fix the roads, do something else in the township with that kind of money versus putting it into the swimming pool, whether it be now 10 years from now or 30 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Matsura will be on deck.
I have a question, Mr. Lauer. The plan, people have been asking whether that's set in stone. I mean, it's my understanding that it isn't set in stone.
Well, it's a master plan, so it provides a well thought out plan for the future development of the park, but it is not cast in stone, and it only comes into play when council commits funds through the budgeting process to make it a reality. So what Mr. Kozer says is absolutely correct. If you would look at the Peterswood Park, there was a master plan for Peterswood Park, and then eventually it was built out pretty much in accordance with that plan. But along, the road, as elements were to be developed, that was a decision that was made by council with regard to each element. So, can the master plan change? Yes. Could council decide if it wanted to eliminate an element or never build an element? That is a possibility. But it has standing until at some point in time someone decides that it changes.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to clarify that because, I don't think it's fair that, in a way, it can be kind of misleading in the sense that, you might think, well, if we're going to build it now, it's cheaper than building it later, and I don't think that's necessarily true. Not that it would cost more. I think that's definitely true.
Yeah.
But I think that the fact that it will actually be built, as opposed to, who knows what's going to happen 20 or 30 years from now.
And I would agree with that. I would reiterate what I thought was actually the thought of council when the master plan was being developed, was that there was this desire, recognizing the input from the community with regard to this need, that on these 90-some acres there would be reserved the opportunity if at some point in the future council wanted to build a pool, and that's why the master plan looks as it does.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kozer.
Not at all. Proceed.
All right, my name is Garrett Murray. I live on 121 Willhaven Drive. If you don't know where it is, it's right off of Center Church, across the street from the KinderCare. It's on that same road. So, 21 years old, about to be 22 this upcoming June, and I'm really glad I came to this, and even gladder I chose to speak, because there's, not to be rude, but there's not a lot of young blood here. And one of us needed to come and say our piece. And I am very much in favor of building this community pool. I've been here since the year 2000, moved here when I was 3, went through the school system, class of 2015, and I can speak very much for my group of friends when I say that we missed out on not having a public pool to go to. During the summer, we would be struggling to find things to do. Well, we didn't want to go outside because it was hot. None of us had a pool. Only one of us had a pass to Rose Garden, but we didn't want to go there because it was crowded and it frankly wasn't that fun to be in. Yeah. I'm sorry, but that's our thinking. So what we did was we stayed inside and played video games instead of going out and enjoying the beauty that is Peters Township. I was part of the swim team going through the school system. We would go to Rose Garden, but there was only, 4 or 5 lanes there at Rose Garden? It's, even with the swim team, 18, 24 kids, that is very crowded for just swimming in. If someone's just a tiny bit slower, you're swimming up their ass, just to put it frankly. So I would advocate for making it a 6 or 8 lane pool, but I guess that's just a side point to all of this. I really would hope that we would invest in this, because going to Upper St. Clair is expensive. Going to the wave pool, South Park is a little bit out of the way. If you put it here, with access from the Arrowhead Trail, Kids will literally be able to ride their bikes and get there, get to that part of the park, be able to go into the pool, have a pool day, ride their bikes back the same day. Right now, the kids aren't going to go to the current rec center to hang out. It's not the cool place to hang out. There's this dinky little skate park that got built there, and I have no idea why. It was probably used for the first month, and I don't think anyone has set foot in it since. Again, it's not to talk ill of some of the features of our township. This is just something we are severely lacking. A couple people compared, they brought up Dormont Pool. Peters Township is not Dormont. Peters Township is significantly nicer than Dormont, I'm sorry to say. But not only that, we would be building a much nicer facility than Dormont Pool, because Dormont Pool is literally just a giant pool with a slide in the middle of it. This is going to be a full-fledged facility with like a small water park for kids, then a big pool for the older people, the adults to swim in. I really don't think it should be as much of an issue as people are making it out to seem. In my view, it's a universal good. I truly, truly wish I would have had access to a pool, because I would not have been sitting in my friend's house playing Call of Duty most days of the summer if we had something to do, because we weren't going to go, just running around the park, because at that point there was even a little bit less there than there currently is. We just didn't see the appeal in using some of this, the parks and other such things, because a lot of my friends weren't inclined to play sports like I was, so dragging them out to kick a soccer ball or throw a football was very hard. But they would gladly have come with me to go have a pool day. We always talked about like, hey, do you want to go to Rose Garden? It's like, it's kind of crowded at Rose Garden. Maybe another time. I was like, well, do you want to go to the wave pool? No, we have to drive out to the wave pool, or get our parents to drive us there, which is even worse. I'm running out of time, but I really just want to say that the young people would very much appreciate something else to do in this town, even if it's only for 3 months out of the year, which I don't see why that would be a bad thing. Yeah, we're going to spend 9 months inside, but might as well get us out for the 3 that it's nice here.
Thank you. Betty Elton will be on deck.
Hi, I'm Mary Matsura, 208 Lightholder Drive. I couldn't have asked for a better foray into it. My daughter Hannah was in your class. You might know Hannah Matsura. Yes. All right. So I almost wanted to cry when you said that you missed out, because I know what she missed out. And a few of you know me. I grew up myself in Minnesota, and if you think that having access to water to swim in as a community is limited here, you should try there. Okay. Nobody wants to do that. But I'm saying that we're not talking about a pool. We're talking about a park where people will come, and I've heard all of my same reasons brought up already. You bring your little kids to teach them to swim, because that's a life-saving skill. And they remember who's in the classes with them as they went through swim lessons. So that's building knowledge of each other, and parents watching them together. And we also talked about some grandparents, other older people who have other relatives coming to visit, not to mention other communities bringing their young to visit, and that would be the attraction. That would be the attraction. I agree 100%. The rec center, although it's nice, I was disappointed I don't use it because it doesn't have a pool. I have been looking for a place to swim since I moved here in 2003, and I'm just spoiled because I grew up living, anytime you want to go to swim, you can go after supper. It's 15 minutes at the most to get to a lake to pop in. And we didn't have all of these restrictions of having lifeguards on duty because we were all swimmers. We grew up like that. There may be insurance issues with it. I really challenged someone said it's illegal not to have a lifeguard on duty, but At any rate, so I want to speak more to the importance to the community of having the time and quality place to gather, that you will know your neighbors. And one of the biggest problems we have in our communities now is we don't know each other. And the gal who brought up about, playing in the mud and all of that, that was really great. But in today's communities, our kids have play dates on the other side of town that we have to get in our cars and drive them to. And wouldn't it be nicer to have that play date at the pool? Wouldn't it be a more convenient place where they have refreshments and it's a safe place? And eventually when they get old enough, they can ride their bikes. I love the idea of the bike racks. I don't know why we don't have bike racks at schools. I haven't figured that one out here yet. But at the end of the day, I think that importance of having that opportunity to meet your neighbors with kids or without kids, having the place for the seniors to exercise, I can't tell you how important that is, to have the time and place for that. And we know we want it. Here's my second point of this whole conversation is I don't really understand the decision-making process here. If the decision has already been made, are we just talking about a budgeting process? And if it's a budgeting process, then it's up to you all that develop the budget. Then, and if those are not the right people to make this budget, to make this pool happen, then in the upcoming election, I highly suggest we get the right people that will make that decision. The young people, the people who have children. I know you're busy in your families, but we need to step up and run for office, and we need to get the right people on that board that are going to make the long-term decisions that we need. I think that's all I'll say for today. Thank you.
Betty Elton? No. Michael Purvis?
Well, I think someone's coming.
Oh, she coming?
I don't know. No.
And Brian Skalinski will be on deck? Michael Purvis?
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Purvis. I've lived in Peters now for 2.5 years. I live at 120 Forest Wood Drive in Venetia. This is Sophie. She stayed up late tonight. She's a first grader at Bower Hill. She's on her iPad, but she's also the first in her class. She can speak Spanish and do all kind of cool things that I couldn't do in first grade. Amazing school district, by the way. We moved here for the school district. We were in a couple different school districts until we found the right one. We almost moved to Bridgeville, where we would have paid twice as much in tax dollars, but instead of building in Newberry, we decided to come to Peters. We came here because of the excellent school district. In my neighborhood, there's 62 homes, and in that neighborhood, I'm the treasurer of our HOA board. As an economist, I can tell you that by having a swimming pool on your property, and from experience, my last home, I had an in-ground pool for 10 years, I can tell you that you'll depreciate the value of your home about 25% by having a pool in your home. And as our HOA, we won't have an above-ground pool system in our neighborhood. So since I moved here to Venetia, I said, where are we going to swim? Buddies go to Upper St. Clair. We go with them on the guest pass. It's a gorgeous place. We'll probably be signing up there this year. Sophie here is an excellent swimmer. She's been swimming at Goldfish, paying $96 a month, which isn't cheap, but guess what? She's a fast swimmer now, and she couldn't even swim at all when we moved here. So we're prepared to pay up to $1,200 a year for a membership. We had a membership at Sandcastle, a little bit gross over there, as you know. We liked the swimming pool at Dormont. Sophie did her first water slide experience there and loved it. Now she's fearless of water slides. Can't wait to hit that cruise ship this summer. As for the rec center, Sophie is highly involved in karate. She just got her yellow belt at the rec center and had her first surprise sparring match. I play volleyball at the rec center. My wife and I walk on the track. We play air hockey on the broken air hockey machine, even though we have to keep our own score, wink, wink. And we play ping pong there. I can also tell you that from a new family, we don't have a lot of friends in the area. I welcome you all to come over and hang out sometime. Or you can find me at Bower Hill social events or local farmers markets. Thanks, everybody.
Jet Miskus will be on deck.
Brian Skalinsky, 251 Hill Place Road. Just a couple questions that I had was, again, if the concept is this is going to happen, the question that I think you guys understand better than I do is, with the high school being built, with their 2 other properties that are listed as future plans, those costs also are going into what may raise our taxes. So in the next 10, 15, 25 years, I think you guys have a better idea of what that plan is and where this additional cost of maybe only $75, but it's on top of other things, how that will affect us. And if anyone can answer that, that'd be great. The other question for Cranberry, I'm sorry if I just say that. Are there other competing local pools in the area?
Yes, there are.
Are they as yours is just like St. Clair is here, or are they more like a Dormont, just a square pool?
In our area, we have the Cranberry Pool itself. Zealand and Opal and Evans City are just north of us, and they both are completing renovations this year. Just north of Evans City is the Butler County Pool at Alameda, and they just completed a renovation 2015, I believe.
Can you define just near? I mean, time-wise or travel time?
I'm sorry.
What just near is for those other?
Within Alameda's the farthest away. I would say it's about a 25 to 30-minute drive, depending on traffic.
The other question is if anybody is aware of any other pool facilities on basically school campus, because to me this is on the high school campus. It's kids can get out of school, walk across the street without any supervision, and what are the plans for security at 3 o'clock for a 14, 15-year-old or a 13-year-old that drives off the path coming down to be able to get into these facilities, because most places don't have that, is my understanding. So that kind of security or on a school campus for after hours, if that's been looked at?
Well, I think it would be very minimal, because
I'm sorry?
I mean, the pool probably wouldn't open until it gets warm, and maybe you have a month of school left.
Well, that month still counts. And we're talking about 3 months, so it's a third of what the time we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
So I just mean security-wise and the concern for the kids. And what's going to happen if they play hooky at noon on a really nice end of May day? Is security going to not let them in? And then come June 1st, they're going to let them in if they're 16 without supervision? I don't know how that's done at Cranberry. Maybe you guys can comment on if 13 to 16-year-olds come to the pool unsupervised.
Anybody under the age of 12 should be accompanied by an adult age 18 or older.
So
16 or older.
16 or 12, I'm sorry.
Anybody under the age of 12 needs to be accompanied by somebody age 16 or older.
Oh, okay, so 12 to 16, they're allowed in without parental supervision, or is that correct?
Yes, sir. We recommend it
I
under
understand
16.
what you recommend, but you guys aren't on a school campus.
Under 12, we'll stop them. And we have that with our membership passes coming in the door, as well as if they're coming in as a drop-in, we ask for ID.
And what are your charges for resident versus non-resident for a season?
I had those. We have them. For membership rates or drop-in
Please,
rates?
both.
It's $8 for an adult. I'll borrow this. So for 2019, a resident is $8, a non-resident is $12. For children ages 2 to 12, it's $7 and $10 for resident, non-resident. Under the age of 2 is free. Our seniors have come in at $7 and $10 for a non-resident. Twilight rates are $5 and $6. Our Tuesday night swims, our members are free, and we do now allow for a $2 drop-in rate for anybody. Lap swims are $3. We also have our membership rates. We didn't bring those. Nobody didn't bring the membership rates in. But we vary our rates based on the number of people that are going to be in the family. So a single membership as opposed to going on up. And it is broken out. It's higher for a non-resident than a resident.
Do you have a percentage increase? If you don't have the number?
Yep. Oh, we do have them. All right, good. I thought For an individual, it's, when we do have a tiered system too, so you can buy the early discount. I'm just gonna give you the straight up what the rates are now. And that would be for a season rate at full price, it's $105 for an individual. And these are residents. For a family of 2, it'd be $170, and it goes up to a family of 5 plus being $335. We also have a nanny pass and some other things that are on there as well.
Thank you. My time's up. Just a quick question is, do you have a breakdown of residents versus non-residents for volume? I'll sit down on that. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
For the season, do you have a breakdown on how many people are residents versus how many people are non-residents that come to the facility?
You mean as far as members are, or just admissions
Total
coming in
numbers.
the door? I do have that. I don't have that here with me.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Karen Marshall will be on deck.
Hi, I'm Jet Miskus of Springdale Road. I actually moved here 26 years ago from Minnesota. I know somebody else spoke about Minnesota, but I don't think council's looking actually big enough. And I'm one that doesn't want the tax increase. But I don't think you're looking big enough. Going to Cranberry is not far enough. Try looking at the facilities they have in Minnesota. Upper St. Clair is close to some of those that are there, where they're open 365 days a year. And people like myself and the vast majority of people in this room who put our children through the school district, our kids cannot afford to live in this township. Our daughter bought a home in Mount Lebanon. We go to Mount Lebanon Pool. So I won't even be using this unless you think bigger. You need to think outside the box and start thinking of some place that you can use holistically for every member of the community. Thank you.
Blair McCarthy will be on deck.
Karen Marshall, 100 Bayberry Court. I've been a Peters Township resident since 1987. I work on all sides of the city. We are lacking a facility to accommodate all of our needs, not just young children, but which are for safety purposes, the teenagers that might help to eliminate some of the opioid addiction that we have. It gives them something else to live for and to look forward to. Possibly redesign a little bit to accommodate year-round participation. Those would be my recommendations, but we are lacking. I can tell you that I work in North Hills a lot, and people gravitate to what they feel is going to be beneficial to their family. It's beneficial to everyone. No one wants change, no one wants tax increase, but this is the here and now, and we all need to live for the future and for the now, and so that we all benefit from all of this. You're all going to get to enjoy this facility. It's going to happen, and if you let it go further into 10 years from now or 5 years from now, the cost will only increase. I do new construction. Nothing comes down in new construction. It will cost us much more money, and we will not have the ability to enjoy it.
Elizabeth Rush will be on deck.
Blair McCarthy, 133 Fawn Valley Drive. It seems the focus here is really on an outdoor facility, and I hear a lot of objections due to the seasonal use of it. And I'm just wondering, if we're spending the money, why not do a 4-season aquatic center? The additional revenue year-round would probably cover the additional cost, I would suppose. It could be a reprieve from cold winters. It could, not limited just by, people talked about last summer and how poor the weather was in the summer. It could be a winter hangout. So just things, I was just wondering if a year-round facility is still in play, or is that off the board? Is that something that could be brought to the table? And if we do only build a single-season facility now, is it possible to, in the future, in maybe a second phase or so, do build out to a year-round facility?
My quick comment would be, it's been hard enough to get the wheel to turn this far, okay? We did toy with and took recommendations for indoor heated facility, therapeutic pools and things of that nature. But at least from the committee that did the study and an assessment of the unwillingness from a large part of this population to spend any of this money, we're here talking about what we've got.
Right.
If it's a success, I think the wisdom in this community would open the door to a more four-season addition to the facility.
Okay.
That's me. I guess,
Absolutely.
And I'll have to talk on the other side of that equation, because one of the things that I asked, and I was one of the proponents of trying to build a combined facility that the school and the township could potentially partner on that would be year-round to fulfill the needs of the competitive swimming program, as well as the seniors and the children and everybody else in the community. But right now we have a pool in the school and a pool in the park, and right now we can't, as residents, go into the school, though the students will be able to use the pool in the park. I have to say that that was one of my concerns if we were going to do it. And I think, as someone said, you know, go big. A year-round facility to me would be the only logical thing.
Yeah, because talking about the school pool, you know, I heard like that's not going to really be someplace where people are going to want to hang out in the winter. Even if it was open to residents, it's going to be a rather, you know, it's a not heated pool. It's cold. The atmosphere won't be there. Whereas we did something like this, you know, maybe like an indoor lazy river, or you know, indoor facilities where people want to go in the winter and not only have it as a 3-month facility that's just not going to be as used as, you know, as much as it could be.
You?
Thank you.
Rebecca Berquist will be on deck.
I'm Elizabeth Rush. I live at 303 Squire Lane in McMurray. I wasn't sure I was going to talk tonight. This is, in all honesty, my first council meeting. Sorry, guys, I haven't come sooner.
You're not the only resident, trust me.
I'm here, right? I am a mother of 3 young children. I'm a member at Rose Garden, which I love. I think Rose Garden's great. Lucky me, for sure. Bond came with my house. I didn't have to wait 4 years. But I'm a little discouraged tonight hearing some of my community speak that they aren't looking at a situation with children in mind. Peters really seems to have a great retention rate of citizens. And as someone who's from out of town, I don't even have a home base, like, I don't even know where I'm from, basically. It's been something that has shocked me, because it's not something I ever grew up with. How many people stay here and love it here and raise their kids here? So for these, you know, older citizens, no offense to anybody, I don't know the PC word for the elderly or senior citizens, so I hope I'm saying it correctly. I don't vote down senior citizen centers in Peters or the seniors living facilities that a lot of people complain about because they have so many multiple, you know, citizens living in one building and there are 4 floors. I don't vote against you just because I don't need it. You know, I might need it, or my parents might need it. I want our community to be served as a total, not just my young family. So I hope that people really keep that in mind. It's not just about you, and I do understand, you know, I sympathize with the budgetary issues. I see that, and my question about that would be, right now we're looking at $580 a month, so let's round that up to $6 on our taxes. Are you allowed to increase that without the public having some sort of vote, or it going to, like, how does that work? Which I know you can't really tell me in a very short time period because I still have more to say, but if you're giving us this budget, will all of a sudden our taxes double in that if you go over budget? You're not allowed to do that. You're only allowed to increase by a certain mill rate, right? Every year?
Mr. Lauer?
Council has complete discretion within the framework that's provided under the second-class township code. The fact of the matter is, I've been here since 1984, and the one thing that I will say about council over that period of time, and I will say the same thing about the school board, is that they are very strong fiscal stewards. And so the challenge has always been for the township manager and the township staff is to present a budget that is fiscally responsible. So when earlier I was talking about what it would take to finance this pool and the park development, I talked in terms of 2 mills of taxes. That's the outer limit of what it would be. If in fact, depending on what our experience is this year with revenues and this year's with expenditures, that tax increase may not be that much next year. So if in fact the project ran over, the township will have to pay for it and we'll find resources to do that. But that's not our history of constructing projects here.
Okay.
I can tell you, we generally deliver things on time and on budget.
Okay, thanks. And I have to say, I'm a little concerned that Cranberry's here and not Upper St. Clair, because I think Upper St. Clair had a very different story than Cranberry, and I have no factual evidence in my pocket right now, but from what I've heard and from what I've seen, I think they had some real budgetary issues up there. It didn't make the money they thought they made. So I don't know if that's true, so I could be just speaking totally off topic.
I can tell you, when they initially opened Upper St. Clair, they were challenged with their membership.
Okay,
but
that's when I joined,
that
is when they
is
originally
no
opened.
longer the case.
Okay.
Having spoke with their finance director and their assistant manager, they have turned that around, and they're actually at where they anticipated being.
Okay, also, my biggest complaint as a young family, so I can't imagine how the senior citizens feel, I don't want this. I really don't. It's the visibility of Upper St. Clair is so difficult that I have 3 multiple different age children and I can't see them all at once. This huge play structure in the middle is a problem for me as a parent, and I know other parents feel the same way. So I don't know who designed it, but I wonder, are we still open for design options, hopefully? Because I think you might want a little bit more input from parents, although I know you guys, I think you did some sort of, my time's expired, but you did some sort of, I think, feedback from the community. Splash pad's great, but the whole thing in the middle where you can't see the rest of the pool is really rough on parents sometimes. So just a general idea.
Thank you. And our final person on deck will be Frank Diostine.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Berquist. I live at 101 Saratoga, and I have been here since 1986. I've been through many different schools, and my children have never benefited from the phenomenal facility that you're going to build at the high school, which I'm 100% for. My children will not benefit from this swimming pool, which I'm 100% for, because I believe in the future of Peters Township as a community. I don't believe we have ever felt that it's only just about us. It's about how we can make this a competitive community. How you benefit is when your house is more valuable because of the services that we are providing that are outside. We have an excellent school district. Let's get this township rolling. We need to do this for everybody. And I may bring my grandchildren here once a month, but I will be a member. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Frank DeAugustine, 150 Marion Drive, and I'm opposed to this pool and the Aquatic Center. It seems like everything in Peters Township has special interest groups. I watch the township meetings every once in a while, and when they were going to build the high school, the main thing was the swim team. Every kid on the swim team came up there and talked about the pool, how much they needed the pool for the swim team. Now, I went to a high school over in Northside Pittsburgh. Northside Pittsburgh, we had 4 public pools within walking distance. This public pool you're talking about is not in walking distance for anybody. This public pool is in driving distance. I live on Marion Drive. It's probably 2-3 miles away from here, but you have to walk down McMurray Road, or you have to walk through people's backyards. This is not a public pool. It's easy or convenient. We are not an urban district here. We're farmland, we're country. Everybody that's come up here that really wants the pool has a special interest. That fellow that was here with his little daughter, I noticed he had a sports shirt on. So he's a soccer enthusiast. He's on the soccer team. When my kids were little, when I lived in Crafton, I was on the Crafton Little Cougars board, and everything I wanted had to do with my son playing football. There's a woman back here who sells multi-million-dollar houses, so this is really a selling point for Peters Township. But I'll tell you one thing that I'm disappointed in this board is that about 2 years ago, we couldn't find any money for Meals on Wheels to rent a space in our fire department. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, is there any member of council who wishes to speak? Seeing no one, I will declare...
Wait a minute. I can't keep...
Oh, sorry, Mr. Lewis.
Hey, turn that clock on. I'm just kidding, Bob.
Well, I can't find the button. Can we hear me? All right, well, I can't say I've outlasted most of you, but I moved to Peters in 1977. I've been involved in community activities probably since about 1979. I put time in the zoning hearing board. I put time in this council. I put time in with my kids when I got off of this council, and when they didn't want anything more to do with me, I got back on the council. There's nothing that I have ever thought of that wasn't, in my own mind, an effort to make Peters Township a better place. I started about the trail. Well, we originally wanted the right-of-way for the trail because we thought we could bring rapid transit to Peters. And that could never cross the county line based on this area's political developments. So we found the trail. Just as this meeting has had mixed reviews, I'd have to tell you the concept of the trail was probably even more negative. Yet it's one of the things in Western Pennsylvania's communities around Pittsburgh that makes Peters special. The next thing is talk about our public safety. We have one of the finest volunteer paid fire departments in Western Pennsylvania. We have an excellent police department. Our state highway road system in Peters sucks. But your community roads are in good shape. The next thing I'm going to talk about is a lot of people didn't want us to buy Peters Lake Park. Too expensive. What are you going to do with it? It's a jewel of this community. Let's put that same vision into what does that mean when you end up wanting to sell your house or people want to look at coming into this community. It's time that motion 20 years ago, not to build a pool, get faced with reality. This community deserves it. This community, I believe, needs to continue to be blessed with a vision to become a better place to be. So we really want to thank all of you for coming. I'm not surprised by the different sentiments, because they've existed for the past 30 years that I've been involved in trying to mold this community. But my motion is directed toward this continuing improvement. I know I approached Mr. Lauer, I said, can we find some young people to run for council? I thought. And what Mr. Lauer said to me, he said, you're the heart of this pool, Mr. Lewis. If you want to see this thing get built, you got to hang around for a while longer. And believe me, that's exactly where my motive is. So, thank you.
I would just like to briefly say that one of the things that we all should be very proud of is this council and councils before us have always done a very good job with fiscal responsibility. We have in Peters Township a AA+ standalone rating. And there are not very many municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania that you can say that. And the reason for that is we have been fiscally responsible. And what Mr. Lauer said earlier, the amount that we could borrow is still extremely low, which is why we carry the AA+ standalone rating. So this decision is something that is not something we just make up. Prior to the master plan, we did a study to try to determine what our future needs were for recreation facilities. And one of the things that came out, because at that time, Peters Township, I think, was still only about 50% rural and 50% built out. And when you look at the growth spectrum of what we were going to go on, it required, I think, Paul, 220 additional acres of recreation parks, additional parks. As our population grows, our demand for parks also increases. And when we had the opportunity to buy Rolling Hills Park, it was almost like Central Park fell right in our lap. And it was something that, yes, it cost a lot of money, but it was something that when you look to the future, as Mr. Lewis has said, you've got to look not just at what is happening today, but what's going to happen, what are we going to need 20 years from now? And that's the thing that this council is faced with. And this decision is one, since again, I've been on council, I know someone said, I don't know where you get, no one's ever had a survey for me. Well, the master plan came from a group of citizens, of Peters Township residents, that all participated from a wide variety, a wide spectrum of demographics. And the end result, we did also hire, we think, one of the best recreational planning companies to do our master plan. They weren't the cheapest, but we felt they were the best. And I think the end result is what you see outside of what this master plan has to offer. As Mr. Kozer has said, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. Again, Peterswood Park took years to develop. And I do remember when the community rec center was proposed, there was a lot of opposition to the community rec center. There probably more than were in favor of it. Don't spend the money, don't do this. And right now, most people will say our community rec center is too small. So that's what you have to take into consideration in a decision like this. Fiscal responsibility and looking at the future of Peters Township. And what I always say, if you're not willing to move ahead, you'll get left behind.
Is there any other member of council who wishes to speak? Okay, we will declare the public hearing closed.